Hi everyone, thank you for joining our Introducing Coveo on Elasticsearch webinar session. I'll be your host. My name is Clara Boulanger. I work on the marketing team here at Coveo, and I'm really excited to be a part of today's session. I'm also thrilled to be joined by our speaker, Gauthier Robe, VP of Products at Coveo. I have a couple of housekeeping items to cover quickly before we get started. First, everyone is in listen-only mode. However, we do want to hear from you during today's presentation. We'll be answering questions at the end of the session, so please feel free to send those along using the Q&A section on your screen. Today's webinar is being recorded and you'll receive the presentation within 24 hours of the conclusion of the event. Finally, there will be a brief survey at the end of the session. Please help us improve future webinars by providing your feedback on the webinar content and experience. For those of you just joining us, welcome to our Introducing Coveo on Elasticsearch webinar session. Now let's get started. Gauthier, please take it away.
Thank you, Clara. So as Clara said, my name is Gauthier Robe. I'm one of the VP products here at Coveo. And specifically, I've been working on Coveo and Elasticsearch. So for today's session, I will assume that most of you know about Coveo, so I will not PowerPoint you to death about our company, but I think I will start with a what's our motto, like what we work for, and it's really at 3 different levels. So first, Coveo is very well known for secure unified indexing, so meaning we have that library of connectors that can target content sources in the cloud, but also behind the firewall on premises like file share, ODBC driven system, etc. And when you take that content and you add the context to it, so meaning that you put the search within the journey of the user, within this workflow, it gets immediately a lot more interesting, right? They don't have to go to a new application. They can just be where they are. You know, we have integration with Salesforce, Psycho, Microsoft Dynamics, etc. And then, of course, when you do that, we can capture the usage of those users. So what have they been searching for? So you can start capturing their intent. And when you combine it all, you create relevance. And to have the best relevance on the market, we apply machine learning algorithm on top of that so that it's basically worry-free for you. And that's really what we live for, to create a search experience with amazing relevance. So today, what we're introducing is actually a new technical asset to the Coveo stack, and it's called Coveo on Elasticsearch. And what is it really? Well, it's the best of Coveo. So everything that has been recognized by the industry and by the analysts, as you can see, we rank pretty high. And it's layered on top of the open source index Elasticsearch. And that way you can achieve maximum scalability. As you probably know, if you're working with Elasticsearch, you know, it can scale in the billions and billions of items, all the flexibility that comes with it, but also still benefit from the relevance from Coveo. And as you can see on the right side of the screen, there's this idea of Lego block. And you can see that Coveo really builds on top of the Elasticsearch index, and you'll understand during the presentation, this is very important. We're not modifying Elasticsearch, we're keeping it vanilla, and that's the way we want it to be. So if you look at Coveo today, or before this announcement, this is a very high-level view of how we're structured, right? We have solutions for Salesforce, we have solutions in the Microsoft ecosystem, and then we have what we call AI search solution, which is really our platform, and that can address all the use cases of what used to be called enterprise search. And to do that, we have a bunch of microservices that we have developed and that work in our cloud stack, from a JavaScript UI framework to a specific query engine, usage analytics, I talked about it, machine learning, beautiful admin console, all the connectivity, and of course, because we are an enterprise solution, very strong security and compliance. All of that is supported by the Coveo index, and it's a SaaS solution, so worry-free for user. It scales on demand. No need to install any hardware on your side. For the most technical people here on the phone, well, this is what it looks like architecturally. And really what's of interest today is the middle box where you can see security cache and index. Today resides in the Coveo cloud, and that index is a Coveo proprietary index that we have been developing over the past 15 years. We love it, extremely flexible, but it's our own technology. What are we bringing with Coveo on Elasticsearch is that we can keep our SaaS solution, or no, we can have an hybrid cloud solution using Elasticsearch. And that same Elasticsearch index can also live in our SaaS solution if it makes sense. So what does it look like? Just to make sure everybody understands. We keep our cloud service. So all the intelligence still resides within the Coveo cloud. But the index itself can be replaced by an Elasticsearch index, and that index can either reside within our cloud or in a different location, for example, behind a firewall at a customer, or in a different private or public cloud. So what do you really get when you use Coveo and Elasticsearch? Well, as I said, it's everything you love about Coveo. So from the machine learning to the usage analytics to the connectivity, which as if you've worked with Elasticsearch, you know it's not necessarily an easy task to get content within the Elasticsearch index. You get to experience, therefore, the best of both worlds, right? You get that open source index with that great community around it, but you also get all the bells and whistles of an enterprise solution. If you view Elasticsearch, well, you can leverage your expertise and probably also leverage some part of your infrastructure. If you use Elasticsearch for some logging and analysis use cases, maybe you can reuse some of that. You get our machine learning, and our machine learning, if you've seen presentation in the past, it works really out of the box. We create the models at scale. We do hyperparameterization for you at scale, and our machine learning really applies at the layer of relevance and user experience. I'll do a demo in a couple of minutes, and you'll understand you can actually get up and running in minutes. It is not a complex task to connect your Elasticsearch cluster to a Coveo cloud organization. As I said, and it will be a recurring theme here, the relevance out of the box is tremendous. That's what we live for. Again, if you have worked with Elasticsearch out of the box, relevance is okay, but it's using basic BM25 or TF-IDF algorithm. We optimize all of that, and then of course we put the machine learning on top. You get access to all our connectors. So you get to index from web content application to file share to cloud-based like Salesforce or Google Drive. It's enterprise ready. We will support document level security. And of course, well, we have to put it out there, right? The GSA is being sunset at the end of the year, and this could be an ideal replacement. Whether you use Coveo SaaS offering, full SaaS offering, or you're still unsure about having everything in the cloud, you can use the Coveo hybrid cloud option. So just to be clear with everyone, what is it really? Well, as I said, it's the Coveo index that can be swapped for Elasticsearch. All our services live on top of Elasticsearch. So we are not modifying Elasticsearch. We're really using the REST API of Elasticsearch to push the content or to conduct queries. Our search APIs, which is our query engine, act as a translation layer between Coveo and Elasticsearch. You have nothing to do and you have nothing to install. The data at rest can reside anywhere, so just the index can live wherever you want it to be. And as I said, it could be a soft evolution for people that know that one day they will have to move to the cloud, but still are still attached for various reasons, including compliance reasons, to have that data at rest on premises. That's definitely a possibility. Well, it's not, because I want to be very clear with everyone on the phone. It is not an on-premises solution. It's not 100% on-premises. The data still goes through the cloud because that's where it is being processed. If you're familiar with search and enterprise search, well, document needs to be converted, document needs to be enriched, and all of that, the machine learning, the usage analytics, all of that resides in the Coveo cloud. However, it's not a different set of capabilities between the Coveo SaaS solution that you have today and Coveo and Elasticsearch. Coveo and Elasticsearch, as I said, is a technical asset that we have in our toolbox, and we aim for feature parity. So you don't lose or make, you don't lose anything if you decide to go for one solution or the other. Because we have to put a disclaimer out there, it has not been developed in collaboration with Elastic, the company. However, we are talking with them in order to OEM and partner this and go to market together. And as I said, it's not a specific product, it's a technology. So meaning that you could be a Coveo for Salesforce customer or Coveo Sitecore customer, you can still use Coveo and Elasticsearch. It's not reserved solely for enterprise search or platform type of use cases. So visually, what does it look like? Well, as you can see on my screen, you can have the full SaaS offering, as I said. That means it's all managed by Coveo. We can use either our own index or Elasticsearch, depending on what makes the most sense. And only UI components, so meaning the workflow of the user, or push content source, so custom connectors that you create, would reside within your premises. The index resides in our cloud. That's what we have today. The only difference is that we can use Elasticsearch to achieve massive scale, for example. The Coveo hybrid cloud, which is probably the options that you are looking at, it means that that index that used to be on the left side of the screen is now within the data center. Everything else remains on the cloud. When you do that, however, it comes with, well, a set of responsibilities, like right in Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibilities. So meaning that that index, because it's behind your firewall, it's your property, you need to manage it. Coveo will not have access to it. So the Coveo team cannot start debugging it for you, etc., except if you give the proper access. So we need to be very clear that at the end of the day, it's probably not a cheaper total cost of ownership to go with Coveo hybrid cloud on Elasticsearch. There will be a little bit of change in pricing to reflect the fact that you take part of the cost by hosting the index on premises. You still need to buy those servers. You still need to acquire most likely support from Elastic or from a partner to make sure that you're covered in case of a problem with the index. So, as I promised, I would not do a lot of slides, and I'll just jump into a quick demo of Coveo and Elasticsearch, and you'll see how easy it is to get started. So let me quickly jump to my web browser. Perfect. So for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to use Elastic Cloud to create an Elasticsearch cluster. Again, that could be your on-premises cluster as well. So I'm going to create a cluster. I can pick any size. I can pick any location that I want. It really doesn't matter. And I'm going to leave it as version 6.2.2. We are supporting Elastic from version 5 and up. We don't support Elasticsearch version 2.4 or 1.x anymore. I think it's a safe bet to assume that everybody's migrating at least to version 5, if not 6. I can just give a name to my cluster, so I'll call it Webinar March. Now Elastic Cloud is deploying the machine just for me. What I'm going to do very quickly for the purpose of the demo here is to save the password that we need for the cluster. And now we are ready. So what do I do to connect that to Coveo? I can go to our special registration page. You see here that I'm already authenticated with Coveo. If you're not authenticated, you will be asked to log in with one of the major SAML providers, so Google, Microsoft, or even Salesforce, or even custom ones. So just click next. Now I can choose the name for a Coveo organization. Again, can be anything. I'll call it Webinar March as well. And I'm creating a Coveo organization. See, I get my name here. I can go click next. Now this is the interesting part. This is where I'm actually registering my cluster. So go back to Elastic Cloud, and I get my REST endpoint of the cluster. So REST address, the port, and then the password that I copied earlier. And then I can name the index. By default, we will generate a random name. You can obviously type in your own. And that's all there is to it. So you can see that I have not been onto my Elastic cluster. I've not been installing a plugin. I've not been modifying anything. I'm just using the information for the REST endpoint. Click next. I can review and link my cluster. You can see success. My cluster has been linked to my Coveo organization. And now I can head to Coveo Cloud and work as usual. So I'm redirected automatically, log in. And now I can add content sources. So I told you we have a very vast library of connector. For this demo, I can do a quick web one, can do our own website. I can very quickly change the number here to not index too much content on our website. And then I can add and build the content source. I can also add other content, maybe something a bit more complex, like my Google Drive, for example. Again, you see how easy it is with Coveo. If you have ever done or tried to do that with Elasticsearch, you know that building connectors is not that easy. Building connectors that actually respect the access control list, etc. It's not that easy as well. All of that is taken care of for you with Coveo. So here I have two content sources that have been added. They're being built. In a few seconds, you're going to see that items have been processed. While I'm doing that, I can head to Kibana, for example, to show you that actually we have not modified the cluster at all. And so that's one of the advantages as well, because when you have access to your Elastic cluster or your Elastic index, you can also start using it for other use cases or use it the way you are used to, right? You know, querying it directly, etc. You can do all of that. No, is the right. Give me a second. It's not doing a proper copy. I'm sorry about that. Whatever reason, it's not happy. Yeah. Okay, that should be good. There you go. So I'm actually reading question at the same time, and someone's asking, is it possible to use the Coveo framework with the local Elasticsearch index within my company? So theoretically, yes. However, you would need to index the content with the Coveo index mapping. So we obviously cannot create the query language, create UIs, etc. If we don't know what your mapping are. When you connect your Elasticsearch index to Coveo, we push our mapping. So as long as you're respecting our mappings, yes, you can use that with your current cluster, for example. So, for example, can you first things first, checking that we have index. You can see that I have an index. It's green, webinar March. It's there. So now if I go back to my Coveo admin console, I see that I have items that have started to be processed, 25 and 7 items. So now I can actually do search, do it this way. You can see that the content is now in my index. So I'm querying it the same way as I would if I had a typical Elasticsearch installation. But at the same time, I can use all the bells and whistles of Coveo. So, for example, first I can see all my content here in the content browser with all the details that come with it, etc. So much nicer than doing JSON and Kibana. But also we can very quickly create search experiences as well. So Coveo as an open source, completely open source JavaScript UI framework. And we also let you create those pages using a WYSIWYG editor, and that generates clean code. So you can very quickly create your experience, then copy that code somewhere else, modify it, inject scripts, and whatever else you want in just a few minutes. So again, doing a web page, I call it webinar. You can see that immediately I'm getting a search page with facets, etc. Again, those facets are why the proper mappings are important. I can add a new facet here easily. Again, I would put language as an option. You can see that now I have my new facet language. As I said, it's clean code, so you can absolutely use it somewhere else if you wanted to. And then you can save that experience. I'm not going to inject any kind of CSS or whatever for the purpose of the webinar, but you can see that it's actually super easy to get started now, because now I have documents, including from Google Drive, etc., that are available for search within my index. All of that running on Elasticsearch. I could do the same thing here if I wanted to. I need to create an index pattern. Oops. So you can see that, again, I'm insisting on this. I'm not modifying anything of Elasticsearch. So if you use Kibana and do some discovery on your index, it works the exact same way. Will take a little while to connect to the server, but get it to work. So we have another question here. Is XPack subscription required in order to get security document level? No. So we do recommend and we do want you to purchase XPack because it will help you secure your cluster, and we don't want anybody to do enterprise search type of use cases with confidential data and an open cluster. But the security is actually done by Coveo, so it's not using XPack item level security. So in terms of XPack plugin, nothing is technically required for the solution to work. However, we want you to be safe, and we want you to use XPack and to use Elasticsearch support. Okay. So you can also build cool things with Coveo and Elasticsearch. So to get you started, we have actually created a demo here and we're publishing the code to that demo to show you how far you can push it, and how far you can push the Coveo query language, the Coveo UI, etc. So what we have done here, we have indexed a movie database, music database, Wikipedia, YouTube, we can and a bunch of other content sources. So reaching a scale and an index size that's quite massive. But also showing how we can do machine learning on results, and also recommendation, which Coveo is really good at. So you can see that we can do things like very easily, and by default comes the query suggest. We immediately boost results accordingly. If you guys are familiar, Jumanji had a first version in 95. There's a new one that just came out. Well, by default, Coveo will immediately know that the newest version should be at the top, because if you're looking for movies today, you probably want to see info about the new one. You can do related content immediately coming from YouTube. You can even buy tickets and show times near your area. All of that done by Coveo. We do also music recommendation, etc. in the demo. So the idea here is to show you what you can do, and you can reuse that code obviously for your own use cases. So I invite you to go to that URL, which is elastic.coveodemo.com/demo. It's also on our website, so please use it. So are there any Elasticsearch feature not supported via the Coveo integration to date? So it depends where the question was going. So as I said, in terms of Coveo feature, we're aiming for feature parity. There are still a few things that we're working on, but we estimate that by early April, we'll be at 100% feature parity. In terms of Elasticsearch features, so as I said, all we do really, again, if you look here in the index, sorry, click on the wrong one. All we do is creating a new index into your cluster with the Coveo mappings. That's all. We're not changing anything else. So if you want to use Elasticsearch for something else, if you want to use feature like graph queries, or if you want to use things like SQL or Canvas, because the content that you have in the index is appropriate for that kind of use case, you absolutely can. There's absolutely no restriction there. It's actually things that we are exploring at the Coveo level. See now how we can, for example, index content from Salesforce and other databases, and maybe use Kibana, Canvas, SQL to create dashboards, for example. So again, yes, you could use graph to show connection between movies, actors, directors. If you look at our demo here, and not use the Coveo query language to do that. Again, that's something that you would have to build, right? At that point, the content is in the index. We've made it super easy for you to push that content to the Elasticsearch index. And then if you want to apply a graph on top of that and you know how to do it, absolutely. So again, it's also possible to query the index without going through Coveo and without going to the Coveo search API. What you lose doing that, well, obviously, it's all the advanced ranking, the advanced machine learning, the usage analytics of Coveo. You're just bypassing Coveo altogether. So again, I invite you to, if you want to get access to those resources, so see actually the demo. We also have it in a video if you want a refresher. If you want to play with the movie database, etc., I invite you to head over to our website. We have a section for Coveo and Elasticsearch, and we have put a lot of material, a lot of videos, etc., explanation on how this works. And we just invite you to explore it. And if you really want to try it, if you have a specific use case, well, feel free to contact Coveo. I mean, those requests will be routed to me. I'd be happy to work with you on any kind of ideas you might have, or you can leverage this new option within the Coveo ecosystem. As I promised, I will not do a lot of PowerPoint. I did a demo. So I'm open to any kind of question that you guys might have now. So feel free to write them, and I'll answer as completely as I can.
Thank you, Gauthier, for this great presentation. So we do have more questions for you, and please feel free to keep adding them to the questions section in the control panel. So let's start with the first question. Do you do any kind of testing, checking with the performance?
Yes, we have done quite a bit of testing. We're still doing some at scale, so meaning with hundreds of millions of items, and the performances are really good. So I guess the question is same thing: how much latency are you adding if the index is somewhere else? Well, we're basically just adding the wire latency, right? So you know, physics is what it is. As I said, it's about 70 milliseconds between US and Europe. So if you're indexed in Europe, that's what you add in terms of pushing the content. In terms of querying, it's not noticeable because oftentimes you have a search interface and it takes much longer to return the search, the interface itself and the UI component than it does to return the results. When Coveo makes a query using the Coveo Search API, all we get back, just like with Elasticsearch, is a JSON. So it's pure text. So we have customers using us as far as Australia, and they're super happy with the performances.
Thank you. Next question, what innovative use cases can you imagine for Coveo on Elasticsearch?
Can imagine many. As I said, the one that I'm exploring right now is to see how we can leverage a bit more of Kibana and all the dashboarding features of Kibana. Because one of the complex tasks, as I said, for Elasticsearch has been to index the content. They've done a great job with structured content like logs, app metrics, etc. Not necessarily for unstructured content. Can we now leverage all of that? So very, very interested in looking at that. We're also looking more on an architecture perspective. How can we do distributed clusters? Especially now that Elasticsearch is supporting cross-cluster queries. It would be possible, for example, for a multinational company to index content locally every time and let that content reside within the region, right? So that's also something we are exploring and testing.
Thank you. Next question, do customers need to have a paid version of Elasticsearch and or support from Elastic in order to make this work?
So again, there's a difference between what we want from Coveo and what's technically required. Technically, you can just download Elasticsearch, the open source version from their website, install it. And as I said, as long as your REST endpoint is visible and accessible from Coveo Cloud, you're good to go. However, for production deployment, we really want you to be covered by Elasticsearch support and XPack. So we will require you to show some proof of support there, whether it's provided directly by Elasticsearch or through a partner of yours. What we want to avoid is the situation where Coveo Cloud works great, there's something wrong with your index, we don't have access to it, and your users are suffering because basically there's some kind of ping pong between two companies. We want to make sure that you are covered on both sides.
Thank you. Another question we have, what about connecting to source systems like Documentum?
So you can, if you build either a push connector yourself, or we do have partners that have expertise building those kind of connectors. Like we know that some have created even what they call a bridge between legacy GSA connectors to Coveo. So for example, that kind of bridge still works as well, and they have Documentum connectors or other legacy content source like Lotus Notes, etc.
Thank you. Another question we have here, do you have the price list ready?
So we do not publish the price list because, as I said, the Coveo and Elasticsearch is a technical asset. It's not a product on its own. So the price list would be similar to the one you have for Coveo on Salesforce, Coveo on Cycle, or Coveo platform. As I said, if you do the if you decide to do the hybrid cloud, so hosting it yourself, obviously there's a percentage discount in there because you're taking over some of the capital investment, and we're reflecting that. But if you want a real quote, I would encourage you to talk to our sales team there.
Thank you. Another question, if a company wants to layer Coveo onto an existing Elasticsearch cluster deployment, can they do so?
So as I said earlier, yes, but the index that needs to be served by Coveo will need to respect the mapping. So on a practical standpoint, what it would mean is that you will probably need to reindex your content or push again your content into an index that has the proper mapping. So there's a little bit of work there. It's fairly easy to do. We actually do have customers that have tried it. So anything that you have developed, if you have developed your own connectors, etc., they are still the same. You just need to push to an index that has the proper mapping.
Thank you. Another question. So what version of Elasticsearch will this require or support?
So we start at version 5, typically version 5.1, which was much better than version 5. And obviously any new deployment. So if you're starting brand new, we ask you to take the latest version. But we basically follow the version support cycle of Elasticsearch. So typically every 18 months they have a new one, and we keep supporting the previous major one.
Thank you. So someone has another question. If a customer prefers to keep their index on-premise, can they do so, and can they still benefit from the Coveo Cloud capabilities?
Yes, and that's really the whole point of the technical solution here. So you can keep your index, so what I call the data at rest on premises, or to generalize behind your firewall, and use the Coveo Cloud as, if you want, the brain or the search engine on top. So again, the data goes through the cloud, but it's always in transit. Anything that's stored stays behind the firewall.
Thank you. Do I need to worry about managing indexes and mappings as I do on Elastic today, or Coveo will take care of it?
If you do the self-hosted, so hybrid cloud, yes, you will have to worry not about the mappings, because Coveo will push the mapping, the proper mappings every time for you, but you will have to pay attention to the management of your cluster and your index, so making sure that the memory load is good, that the heap is good, etc. So that is your responsibility. It's within your data center. We don't have a view on it. So we're just pushing data and reading data. We're not managing the cluster. If you don't know how to do that, again, we have a full SaaS offering, and you're welcome to use Coveo Cloud all the way. Or you can also opt for, if you want to keep the control of your data address or your index, you can do just like I did for this demo. You can add to a SaaS provider of Elasticsearch cluster, like Elastic Cloud, like Google GCP as one, Amazon as one, etc. And you can use that as well.
Thank you. Do you recommend a specific number of nodes depending on the use case or a basic architecture?
Yes, so we follow the recommendation of Elasticsearch, and we work hand in hand with them there. So we recommend for production use to go with 3 nodes to avoid a split brain type of scenario. The sizing of the nodes obviously will depend on your use case, number of documents, query per second that you want to support, etc. But production, we would want you to have 3 nodes if possible.
Thank you. And will you be using Elasticsearch for all future clients, or only where the size of architecture warrants it?
Today, I would say we like having both options. Clearly, if we have spent time to develop Coveo and Elasticsearch because we have a strong interest in it and putting more and more customer on that technology. But I would say there's no official decision yet, but likely a lot of new deployment will be using this new technology.
Thank you. And do you have the ability to save queries?
Yes, so that's part actually of our search API and search UI framework. Yes, you can save and share queries with customer. However, since we respect permissions on item, if you save a query and share it with someone else, the results might be different if the entitlement on each item is different for that person. So, for example, if I'm sharing a query that shows content from my own mailbox, well, it's very likely that my colleague will not see the results from my own mailbox, but we can save the query.
Thank you. Will a customer who deploys Coveo and Elasticsearch see any difference from Coveo running on your own native index?
No, that's what we are striving for. So we are testing it rigorously. We are doing a lot of technical magic under the hood to make it seamless. So on an end user perspective, things will work the same way. So if you've used Coveo in the past, the way you do a query ranking expression, or the way you manage boosting, or even basic ranking terms, synonyms, etc., works exactly the same. And that's why you see that I'm using the exact same administration console as any other deployment, also using the Coveo native index.
Thank you. And is the interface highly customizable for different user groups?
So your search interface, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to, you can create as many search experiences as you want. And that's actually what we recommend, right? For every use case, for every user group, for every type of experience from mobile to desktop, etc. You can create different interfaces. We have no limitation on that. And each interface can have what Coveo call a query pipeline. So I will not enter into a full query pipeline demo, but basically for each interface, you can define, the machine learning models being applied, the thesaurus being applied, how you boost results, what are the most ranking weight, etc. So you could again, for example, you could have a use case where you have people from accounting and people from R&D. Well, they tend to be pleased with different type of results or different type of ranking. You can do that. You can make sure that the experience is maybe different on a mobile device than it is on a desktop, for example. Or you can have it's coming more and more as a use case, chatbots, etc. can be an interface as well.
Thank you so much. I don't see any more questions in the queue, but should you have more, please feel free to contact us and we'll make sure to reply in the best delays. So I think now will be a great time to wrap up. Thank you, Gauthier, for the presentation. Just a couple of quick reminders before we sign off. We'll send the recording to all attendees within the next 24 hours. And please remember to help us improve future webinars by completing the brief survey at the end of the session. On behalf of Gauthier and the rest of the team, I'd like to thank you for attending our webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you.